The wind howled like a wounded animal as the businessman's polished leather shoes crunched over the frozen gravel. His breath hung in sharp, white puffs as he glared at the weathered cabin ahead, a stubborn eyesore in the middle of what he'd already mapped out as the future Alpine Crown Resort. The real estate agent had assured him the owner would cave. How hard could it be to evict one lonely woman? He rapped sharply on the door, his gold Rolex glinting in the weak winter sunlight. No answer. Irritation flared. He'd driven 3 hours from the city for this. He knocked again, harder. This time, the door creaked open, and there she stood. Tall, lean, her posture rigid as steel. Her hair was cropped short, streaks of gray blending with chestnut, and her eyes, pale blue, like ice over a lake, locked onto his without blinking. "You're trespassing," she said flatly, her voice calm, but edged with something dangerous. The businessman forced a smile, sharp and practiced. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This land is under new ownership. You've got until the end of the week to vacate." He pulled the eviction papers from his briefcase, crisp and official, and held them out. She didn't move. Didn't even glance at the papers. For a long moment, the only sound was the groan of pine trees swaying in the wind. Then she stepped forward, her boots silent on the wooden porch. Up close, he noticed the scar, a thin, jagged line running from her temple to her jaw, half hidden by her hair. "You don't remember me, do you?" she said, her voice low. The question caught him off guard. He frowned, studying her face. There was something familiar in the way she held his gaze, unflinching, like she'd stared down worse than him. But no. He'd have remembered a woman like this. "Should I?" he snapped, losing patience. A faint smirk tugged at her lips. She reached into the pocket of her faded army jacket and tossed a small object at him. He fumbled to catch it, a bullet casing, cold and dented. His blood ran colder as he turned it over. Etched into the metal were 2 letters, J.R. His brother's initials. The businessman's throat tightened. Memories flickered, voices shouting, a slammed door, his brother's face red with fury. "You'll regret this." That was the last time they'd spoken. 30 years ago. Before he could speak, the woman turned and walked back inside, leaving the door open. A silent dare. He hesitated, then followed, his expensive coat brushing against stacks of old newspapers and military manuals, cluttering the cramped space. The cabin smelled of pine resin and gun oil. On the wall hung a framed photo, a younger version of the woman in uniform, standing beside a man whose face made the businessman's heart stop. His brother. She stood by the fireplace, feeding a log into the flames. "He talked about you," she said, not looking up. "Called you the ghost, always there, never really seen." The businessman's hands trembled. He opened his mouth, but no words came. She turned, her eyes blazing now. "You think you can take his home? His legacy?" She stepped closer, and for the first time in decades, he felt small. "Walk away. Now." He wanted to sneer, to threaten lawyers and lawsuits. But the bullet casing burned in his palm, and the photo on the wall stared back, his brother's eyes, her eyes, accusing. Outside, the wind screamed. The businessman shoved the eviction papers into his briefcase and left without a word. As his car skidded down the mountain road, he glanced in the rearview mirror. She stood on the porch, watching him go, like a soldier guarding a border. He'd be back, he told himself. This wasn't over. But deep down, he knew nothing would ever be the same. The businessman's hands gripped the steering wheel as his car descended the mountain, his mind racing. The bullet casing sat heavy in his coat pocket, its etched initials a silent accusation. J.R. His brother's name had been buried for decades, a ghost he'd refused to acknowledge. Now, it clawed its way back. He flicked on the radio to drown out his thoughts, but static crackled, no signal in these wild hills. Just like her. Untouchable. 20 years earlier, a dust-choked road, somewhere overseas. The soldier crouched behind a crumbling wall, her rifle steady. Around her, the air smelled of smoke and burnt rubber. Her unit had been ambushed, insurgents had taken hostages in a nearby village. Civilians, women, children, were trapped in a concrete schoolhouse. Intel said explosives were rigged to the doors. "We move in 3, her commander barked over the comms. "Cover the east exit. If they rush, hold the line." She adjusted her helmet, her fingers brushing the dog tags beneath her shirt. Her father's, from Vietnam. "Carry them," he'd said when she enlisted. "They'll remind you why you're fighting." Gunfire erupted. The world dissolved into chaos, shouts, screams, the metallic tang of blood. She sprinted toward the schoolhouse, covering her team as they breached the door. A hostage's cry sliced through the noise, a boy, no older than 8, huddled under a desk. "Go," she shouted, shoving him toward a medic. That's when the blast hit. A wall of heat threw her backward. Shrapnel bit into her side, and her ears rang like a struck bell. Through the haze, she saw the insurgent, a teenager, trembling, clutching a detonator. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then she raised her weapon. The shot echoed. The boy fell. Later, they'd call her a hero. The newspapers would print her photo, stoic, bloodied, carrying a child to safety. They wouldn't mention the face she saw in her dreams, the boy with the detonator, his eyes wide with fear. Present day, the businessman's office. The businessman slammed his fist on the mahogany desk, making his assistant flinch. Spread before him were blueprints for the Alpine Crown Resort, its projected profits circled in red. Profits he desperately needed. "She's a veteran," his lawyer repeated, scrolling through a tablet. "Legal protections. We can't just bulldoze her out. The PR alone." "I don't care about PR." The businessman's voice shook. His reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows looked hollow, his tailored suit hanging looser these days. The banks were circling. His wife had left. The cabin was his last card. He pulled the bullet casing from his pocket, rolling it between his fingers. His brother had vanished after their fight, cutting all ties. Jr. The initials felt like a key to a lock he'd sealed long ago. "Dig deeper," he ordered. "Find something, taxes, code violations. Anything." The lawyer hesitated. "There's another option. The town council. If we sway them, maybe they'll revoke her land rights. But it'll take time. Time he didn't have." The businessman stared at the blueprints. Luxury suites, ski lifts, a spa. A kingdom built on borrowed money. "Do it," he said. 18 months earlier, the cabin. The soldier limped up the porch steps, her duffel bag slung over one shoulder. The cabin's roof sagged, its logs weathered gray. Inside, dust motes floated in the sunlight filtering through cracked windows. Her father's chair still sat by the fireplace, its leather cracked. She ran a hand over it, then noticed the envelope on the mantel. Her name, scrawled in his shaky handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't mourn. This place, it's yours now. Keep it wild. And if your uncle ever comes sniffing around, tell him I kept his letters." Letters? She searched the cabin, finding a tin box under the floorboards. Dozens of envelopes, unopened, addressed to her father. All from the same sender, his brother. She burned them, one by one, in the fireplace. Present day, the businessman's penthouse. Rain lashed the windows as the businessman poured himself a third whiskey. His phone buzzed, a text from his daughter. "Heard about the cabin. Stop pretending you're a king. It's pathetic." He deleted it. On the TV, a news segment played, a veterans' charity event, the soldier in the crowd, stiff-backed but smiling as children handed her flowers. The caption read, "Local hero fights for her home." He turned it off. In the silence, he opened his safe, retrieving an old photo. 2 boys on a fishing dock, arms slung over each other's shoulders. His brother's grin was bright, careless. The day before their fathers will split the family land, and their lives, apart. The bullet casing glinted on the desk. He pocketed it, then dialed a number. The cabin, he said. Make her life difficult. But don't touch her. Yet. The businessman's lawyer slid a folder across the polished desk. Inside were photos of the soldier, hauling firewood in a snowstorm, repairing the cabin's roof, standing guard at the edge of the property with a hunting rifle slung over her shoulder. She's not budging, the lawyer said. And the town's starting to talk. The businessman flipped through the images, his jaw tight. In one photo, the soldier stood beside an elderly man outside a diner, their heads bent in conversation. The caption read, VFW meeting, 8 a.m. Who's that? He snapped, stabbing a finger at the man. Retired Marine. Runs the local VFW chapter. They've been organizing petitions, town hall speeches. She's got the whole county arguing about veteran rights online. He tossed the folder aside. So bury her in paperwork. Code violations, zoning issues. Send inspectors every day until she cracks. The lawyer hesitated. There's something else. He opened his laptop, pulling up a news clip from 10 years prior. Grainy footage showed the soldier receiving a medal, her face gaunt, her arm in a sling. The headline, Decorated Sergeant Honored for Valor Under Fire. The businessman leaned closer. The video cut to an interview. A reporter asked, "What kept you going during the ambush?" The soldier's reply was quiet but firm, "I made a promise. Not just to my unit, to my father." A cold knot formed in the businessman's gut. Her father. The brother who'd chosen a shack over a fortune. That afternoon, the town diner. The soldier sat in a corner booth, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug. The diner was a relic of the 1950s, cracked vinyl seats, a jukebox playing Patsy Cline. The retired Marine slid into the seat opposite her, his cane clattering against the table. He's bringing in outsiders, he grumbled. Some fancy inspectors poking around the hardware store, asking about your permits. She sipped her coffee, unfazed. Let him ask. You know what they're doing, right? Dragging you into court'll cost money. Your money. She set the mug down. I've got savings. And when that runs out? Outside, a rusty pickup truck pulled into the lot, its bed filled with teenagers holding hand-painted signs, "Save the cabin." One girl waved at the soldier through the window. The Marine followed her gaze. See that? Kids look up to you. Hell, half this town does. But you gotta let us help. She shook her head. This is my fight. Bull. Your dad fed half this county during the '08 crash. Hunted deer, stocked freezers when jobs dried up. That cabin's not just yours, it's ours. He slapped a wrinkled flyer on the table. Community meeting tonight. Be there. Or I'll drag you. Evening, the businessman's office. The inspector's report was damning. No permit for wood stove. Rainwater cistern violates health codes. Property tax delinquent, 2009 to 2012. The businessman smirked. Perfect. He'd file the motions at dawn, freeze her assets, and... His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, check the news. He clicked the link. A live stream, the town hall, packed to the rafters. The soldier stood at the podium, back straight, voice clear. Think this is about a cabin, she said. It's not. It's about what we owe each other. My father served this country. Came home with scars nobody could see. He gave up everything to keep this land wild, for the next kid who needs to breathe clean air, for the vet who needs quiet to heal. The camera panned to the crowd, farmers, teachers, kids, all nodding. And now someone wants to pave it for a playground for the rich. She paused, staring into the lens like she could see him. But here's the thing about soldiers, sir. We know how to hold ground. The feed cut to a viral hashtag, #HoldTheLine. The businessman hurled his phone against the wall. Midnight, the cabin. The soldier knelt by her father's grave, a simple stone under an old oak. Wind chimes made of shell casings clinked softly above it. Should have told me about the letters, she muttered, placing a fresh bundle of sage on the plot. Would have saved me some rage. Headlights pierced the darkness. A car idled at the edge of the property. She stood slowly, hand drifting to the knife in her boot. The car sped off, kicking up gravel. Tied to the gate was a dead rat, a note pinned to its chest, "Stop talking." She crumpled the note, her face calm. Then she pulled out her phone, snapped a photo, and uploaded it to the #HoldTheLine thread. "Threats won't change the truth," she captioned it. "See you all at the courthouse." The courthouse steps buzzed with chaos. Reporters shoved microphones in the soldier's face as she climbed the stairs, her boots steady on the icy concrete. "Sergeant, will you countersue for harassment?" one shouted. She didn't answer. Ahead of her, the businessman's lawyer waited, smug in a tailored overcoat. Inside, the courtroom felt suffocating. The judge, a weary man with salt and pepper brows, skimmed the businessman's stack of code violations. The soldier sat alone, her hands folded on the table. "No lawyer." "Your Honor," the businessman's lawyer began, "the defendant's disregard for local ordinances is a public hazard. We request immediate eviction and fines totaling." The courtroom doors burst open. A dozen veterans filed in, their medals pinned to coats and flannel shirts. They filled the benches behind her, silent but glaring. The retired Marine limped to the soldier's table and dropped a folder in front of the judge. "Your Honor, we'd like to submit evidence of selective enforcement." The judge raised an eyebrow. The folder contained photos of nearby cabins, owned by the businessman's friends, with identical code violations, untouched by inspectors. The lawyer stammered. "Irrelevant. My client's concerns are purely about safety." "Safety?" The soldier stood, her voice slicing through the room. She tossed a water damaged permit from 1982 onto the table. Her father's signature sprawled at the bottom. "This land's been grandfathered into every code for 40 years. "But you wouldn't know that," she said, staring at the lawyer, "because your client never asked." The businessman, lurking at the back of the room, clenched his fists. That night, the businessman's hotel suite. He paced, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care if the judge delays the ruling. Light a fire under the council. Double the donations. Triple." A pause. "And tell the crew to step it up. She wants a war? Give her one." 3 a.m., the cabin. A shadow moved through the trees. Then another. 4 men, faces covered, crept toward the cabin with cans of gasoline. One gestured to the porch. Crack. A tripwire snapped. Before they could react, floodlights blinded them. The soldier stepped out of the darkness, a shotgun cradled in her arms. "Drop the cans," she said. One man lunged. She sidestepped, slamming the rifle stock into his ribs. He crumpled. The others froze. "You're trespassing," she said, calm as a sniper. "Leave. Now. And tell your boss his hired help needs better training." They fled, dragging their injured friend. She watched their truck skid away, then texted the retired Marine, "Rat problem handled." Next morning, the reporter's office. The journalist squinted at her computer screen, cross-referencing bank records. The businessman's donations to the town council matched offshore transfers to a shell company. She printed the documents, hands shaking. This was bigger than a land dispute, it was a money trail leading to a state senator. Her editor frowned. "We can't run this without proof." "Give me 2 days," she said. Afternoon, the soldier's cabin. A black sedan pulled up. The businessman's daughter stepped out, her designer boots sinking into the mud. The soldier watched from the porch, wary. "I'm not here for him," the young woman said, holding up her hands. She pulled an envelope from her bag, old photos of the brothers as boys, fishing, laughing. Found these in his safe. Thought you should have them. The soldier's stern expression softened. Why? The daughter shrugged. He's a monster. But, he wasn't always. She glanced at the cabin. My mom said Uncle James talked about this place nonstop. Said it was the only thing he ever loved more than the army. The soldier studied her. You're nothing like him. Trying not to be. The daughter left the photos on the porch steps. Watch your back. He's scared now. Scared people do stupid things. Dusk, the businessman's office. His phone rang. The state senator's voice was a growl. The reporter's sniffing around. Shut this down, or I'll bury you myself. The businessman hung up, opened his desk drawer, and pulled out a pistol. The businessman's face flushed crimson as he stared at the headlines splashed across the morning news. Tycoon's empire built on lies, corruption ties to state senator exposed. The journalist's byline glared back at him, her evidence airtight, bank transfers, secret meetings, every dirty deal laid bare. His phone rang incessantly, investors, reporters, his panicked board. He silenced it, his hand hovering over the pistol in his desk drawer. His office door slammed open. His daughter stood there, her face pale but determined. You need to stop, she said. It's over. He lunged at her, gripping her arm. You did this. You leaked it. She yanked free, her voice steady. You did this to yourself. You think money fixes everything? Look at you, you're nothing now. He raised his hand to strike her, but froze. For a heartbeat, he saw his brother in her eyes, the same defiance, the same unbroken will. She left, the door echoing behind her. Noon, the cabin. The soldier sat at her father's old desk, sorting through his letters. The photos of the brothers as boys lay in front of her, grinning, arms slung over each other's shoulders. An engine roared outside. Tires screeched. The businessman stumbled from his car, pistol clutched in his shaking hand. You ruined me, he screamed, storming onto the porch. You think you're special? I've ruined better people than you. The soldier stepped outside, unarmed, her gaze steady. You already did ruin someone better, she said quietly. Your brother. He faltered, the gun wavering. Liar. He left, he chose this dump over family. She tossed the photos at his feet. He chose honor. You chose greed. She pulled a faded letter from her pocket, its edges brittle. He wrote this after your father's funeral. I'll wait for you here, little brother. Come home. The businessman's breath hitched. Memory surged, his brother's outstretched hand at their father's grave, spurned. The fight over the will, the words he'd spat, you're dead to me. You killed him, the soldier said, her voice cracking. Not with a bullet. With hate. The pistol clattered to the ground. He sank to his knees, clutching the letter. His brother's handwriting, once familiar, blurred through tears. Flashback, 30 years earlier. Rain pounded the cemetery as the brothers faced each other over their father's coffin. Take your money, the soldier's father growled, shoving the inheritance check away. This land was his heart. And you're selling it to developers? The businessman sneered. Sentimental fools die poor. His brother's fist connected with his jaw. Get out. And don't come back. Present, the cabin. The businessman looked up at the soldier, his voice broken. I didn't know, about the letters. About you. She knelt, eye level with him. You didn't want to know. Wind chimes tinkled, a mournful sound. He reached for the bullet casing in his pocket, pressing it into her hand. Tell me, did he ever mention you? She stood, her shadow stretching over him. Every day. He wondered if you'd ever change. A sob escaped him, raw and ugly. In the distance, sirens wailed, police coming for him, for the senator, for the rot he'd spread. The soldier walked inside, leaving him alone with the ghosts. The sirens grew louder as the businessman knelt on the cabin's porch, the letter crumpled in his fist. Red and blue lights pulsed through the trees, casting long shadows over the soldier's face as she watched from the doorway. 2 officers approached, hands resting on their holsters. One recognized her and nodded respectfully. "Ma'am." The businessman didn't resist as they cuffed him. His eyes stayed locked on the soldier until the patrol car door closed, shielding him behind tinted glass. 3 days later, county jail. The businessman sat on a narrow bunk, staring at the cracked wall. His cellmate, a grizzled man in a faded veteran's cap, glanced at him. "You're that resort guy, huh? Serves you right, messin' with her." The businessman said nothing. The man snorted. "My nephew came back from Afghanistan missing a leg. She built him a ramp for his trailer. Paid for it herself. You don't know what you were trying to destroy." The businessman turned away, fingering the bullet casing in his pocket. Jr., now smooth from his constant worrying. Morning, visitor's room. His daughter sat across from him, her arms crossed. "They're charging you with conspiracy, bribery, fraud. The senator's throwing you under the bus." He stared at his hands. "Why did you come?" "Because someone has to tell you the truth." She slid a photo across the table, a faded snapshot of him and his brother teaching her to fish at the cabin's lake, years before the feud. "You were good once. Before the money." His throat tightened. "I can't fix this." "You can start," she said. "Testify against the senator. Help the reporter." He hesitated, then nodded. Afternoon, the soldier's cabin. The journalist sat at the kitchen table, her recorder running. The soldier handed her a stack of her father's letters. He kept every one his brother sent. Even the angry ones. The journalist scanned a page. "These prove the land was willed to your father. The eviction was illegal." The soldier nodded. "But that's not the story. The story's why a man abandons his family for greed." Outside, a car pulled up. The businessman's daughter stepped out, holding a box. "He wants you to have these," she said, setting it on the porch. Inside were his brother's old belongings, a pocketknife, a journal, a ribbon-tied bundle of letters. The soldier picked up the journal, flipping to a dog-eared page. "Today, my daughter asked why I don't visit the city. I told her some bridges can't be rebuilt. But I still light a candle for him every Christmas." The businessman's testimony sent shockwaves through the state. The senator was arrested at a golf resort, his mugshot splashed across every news channel. The reporter's series won awards, but she didn't care, her inbox flooded with veteran stories, each one echoing the soldier's fight. 1 week later, the soldier's cabin. A crew of volunteers swarmed the property, veterans, townsfolk, even the retired Marines' grandkids. They patched the roof, cleared storm debris, and built a new sign at the gate, Camp Wildheart, a retreat for those who serve. The soldier hauled logs with the others, her sleeves rolled up, laughter slipping out for the first time in years. The businessman's daughter arrived with a truckload of supplies. "From the liquidation sale," she said, unloading blankets and tools. "His assets are frozen, but, consider it reparations." The soldier handed her a thermos of coffee. "You don't have to fix his mess." "I'm not." The daughter nodded to a group of teens painting benches. "I'm helping yours." Morning, the jail. The businessman sat across from his new lawyer, a no-nonsense woman with a stack of plea deals. "Testifying cut your sentence. 5 years, with parole." He barely heard her. Through the window, he watched a guard pin a newspaper clipping to the board, "Local hero transforms cabin into veteran sanctuary." The photo showed the soldier shaking hands with a young Marine in a wheelchair. "I want to donate the remaining land," he said suddenly. "To her." "Legally." The lawyer paused. "You're broke. That land's all you've got left." He slid a crumpled sketch across the table, a childish drawing of the cabin, labeled Uncle James' house in his daughter's handwriting. "No. It's not. Afternoon, the senator's trial. The courtroom erupted as the businessman took the stand. He named names, dates, amounts, his voice steady, his eyes avoiding the cameras. The senator's glare could have melted steel, but the businessman kept talking. During recess, the journalist cornered him. Why now? He hesitated. My brother's journal, he wrote about regret. I don't want to die like that. Too late for redemption? He glanced at the soldier, sitting in the back row. Maybe. But I can try. Flashback, 40 years earlier. The brothers raced through the woods, breathless, their fishing rods clattering. Bet I'll catch a bigger one, the younger shouted. Loser cleans the fish, his brother laughed. They stumbled into a clearing, sunlight dappling the creek. The future soldier's father snapped a photo with his camera, 2 boys, forever grinning, forever unbroken. Present, Camp Wildheart. The soldier stood at the edge of the lake, the journal in hand. A group of veterans fished nearby, their quiet jokes carrying over the water. The retired Marine joined her, nodding to the photo she held, the brothers fishing. You keeping it? She tucked it into the journal. It's part of the story now. He grunted. You gonna visit him? She watched the sunset paint the cabin gold. Not yet. Night, the businessman's cell. A guard handed him a letter. Inside was a single photo, the restored cabin, veterans gathered around a bonfire. On the back, his daughter's writing, they're healing here. So can you. He pinned it to the wall, next to the old fishing sketch. For the first time in decades, he slept without dreaming of ruins. A storm rolled into the mountains like a vengeful beast, its dark clouds swallowing the sun. The weatherman called it the worst in decades, hurricane-force winds, landslides predicted. At Camp Wildheart, the soldier and volunteers scrambled to secure the cabins, their laughter replaced by grim focus. The businessman's daughter arrived unannounced, her jeep fishtailing through the mud. They released him early for good behavior, she shouted over the wind. Parole. He's on his way here. The soldier froze, a sandbag half lifted. Why? Said he needs to see it through. 2 hours earlier, parole office. The businessman clutched his release papers, his suit hanging loose. His parole officer eyed him skeptically. Your GPS tracker stays on. 1 violation, you're back for life. He nodded, staring at the storm warnings on the office TV. The cabin's coordinates flashed red under a landslide alert. Where you headed? The officer asked. To fix a mistake, he said, grabbing a raincoat. Present, Mountain Road. The storm devoured the road. The businessman's rental car hydroplaned, slamming into a ditch. He crawled out, ankle throbbing, and limped toward the cabin. Rain lashed his face, the wind screaming like the ghosts he'd tried to outrun. Ahead, a mudslide swallowed the road. He spotted a flashlight, 2 hikers trapped under debris. One clutched a child. Help, the woman screamed. The businessman hesitated, glancing toward the cabin's lights in the distance. Then he lurched toward the hikers. Camp Wildheart. The soldier radioed the retired Marine. We've got trees down on the North Ridge. Anyone seen the new group? Negative. Cell towers are out. We're blind. The daughter burst in, soaked. He's not answering his tracker. The landslide zone. The soldier grabbed a rope and axe. Stay with the others. I'm coming. The landslide. The businessman heaved a rock off the hiker's leg, his hands bleeding. The child whimpered in his arms as mud surged around them. Climb, he shouted, hoisting the girl onto a boulder. A flashlight beam cut through the rain. The soldier and daughter slid down the slope, ropes harnessed to a truck. Take her, the businessman yelled, thrusting the child into the daughter's arms. The soldier gripped his arm. Move. Now. They scrambled as the hillside collapsed, mud chasing them to solid ground. The cabin, midnight. The hikers warmed by the fire, wrapped in blankets. The businessman sat apart, his ankle wrapped, staring at his brothers. Journal on the mantel. The soldier tossed him a dry shirt. You saved lives tonight. He didn't meet her eyes. I owed a debt. She sat beside him, her voice low. That's not why you came. Silence. Then, I wanted to see if I could still be someone he'd recognize. Outside, the storm eased. The daughter appeared in the doorway. They're airlifting the injured out at dawn. You're staying? The businessman stood, wincing. I'll turn myself in. The tracker. Already called the parole office, the soldier said. Told them you were here. They'll come tomorrow. He exhaled, nodding. Dawn. Sunlight cracked the horizon, the mountains glistening. The businessman limped to the patrol car, pausing at the cabin's gate. The soldier stood there, holding his brother's dog tags. He'd want you to have these, she said. He clasped them, the metal warm. I don't deserve. It's not about deserve. She shut the car door. It's about what's next. As the car vanished down the road, the daughter joined her. You think he'll change? The soldier watched a hawk circle overhead. He already has. Autumn painted the mountains in gold and crimson, the air crisp with the promise of winter. Camp Wildheart buzzed with laughter, veterans carved pumpkins on the porch, children raced through fallen leaves, and the retired Marine manned the grill, barking orders like a drill sergeant. At the edge of the clearing, the soldier stood beside a new wooden sign, in memory of James R. Wilder. Soldier. Brother. Guardian of the wild. A car crunched up the gravel drive. The businessman stepped out, his parole-issued jacket too thin for the cold. His daughter waved from the fire pit, but he lingered at the sign, tracing his brother's name. The soldier approached, handing him a thermos. Coffee? He shook his head, pulling an envelope from his pocket. The deed. The last parcel of land, legally yours now. No strings. She studied him. Grayer, thinner, but his shoulders no longer hunched under invisible weight. Why? Because he loved it, he said quietly. Anne. I think I finally understand why. A shout rang out, a young boy in a wheelchair struggled to roll up the ramp. The businessman moved instinctively, steadying the chair. Need a push? The boy grinned. I got it. Just gotta really lean. He stepped back, watching the boy conquer the incline, fists raised in victory. The crowd cheered. For a moment, the businessman saw his brother in the boy's grin, wild, unstoppable. That evening, the bonfire. Stories flowed with the cider. A Marine told of surviving an IED blast. A teen girl read a poem about her mother, a nurse who'd never come home from deployment. The businessman sat apart until his daughter dragged him to the fire. Your turn, she said. All eyes turned to him. He cleared his throat. I built shopping malls. Casinos. Thought they were legacies. His voice wavered. Turns out, the only thing that lasts is this. He nodded to the group, the cabin, the stars. And I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. The soldier raised her mug. To James. To James, the crowd echoed. Midnight, the grave. The businessman knelt by his brother's headstone, the dog tags clutched in his hand. I kept these too long, he muttered, hanging them on the chimes. Wind stirred the shell casings, a gentle, metallic song. His daughter found him there, tears glinting in the moonlight. They're keeping the camp open year-round. I'm staying. To help. He hugged her, tight, fierce, the way he hadn't since she was small. Make it better than I did, he whispered. Epilogue, 1 year later. Snow blanketed the mountains as the businessman trudged up the cabin's path, a Christmas wreath in hand. His daughter waved from the porch, her cheeks rosy. Inside, veterans baked cookies, their voices harmonizing to Silent Night. The soldier nodded to him by the fire. You're late. He set the wreath on his brother's chair. Got a job. Handyman at the VFW. She smirked. Fix the sink, then. It's leaking. As he worked, the retired Marine sidled up, squinting at his tools. You're doing it wrong. Oh yeah? Yeah. Here, this is how a real man handles a wrench. Laughter erupted, warm and bright, as the storm outside faded into peace. Final lesson. Legacy isn't carved in steel or stone. It's the hands you lift, the hearts you mend, and the courage to rewrite your story, even when the world thinks it's too late.